Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're delving into a chapter of human history that is etched into the very bones of our ancestors. Across continents and millennia, a practice emerged that has sparked theories of lost human lineages, advanced knowledge, and even extraterrestrial contact: the intentional shaping of the human head. We're talking about elongated skulls. But we're going to peel back the layers of myth to reveal the incredible science hidden within these enigmatic remains. A field called Neuro-Archaeology, which stands at the crossroads of neuroscience and the study of our past. Artificial Cranial Deformation, or ACD, is the technical term for this practice. It involves intentionally altering the shape of an infant's skull by applying gentle, constant pressure. This was usually done by binding the head with cloth or securing it between two boards during the first few months and years of life. When the cranial bones are soft and malleable, the final shape depended entirely on the culture, resulting in skulls that were flattened, conical, or most famously, elongated. This wasn't some isolated, bizarre tradition. Evidence of head shaping has been found all over the world, spanning vast distances in both time and geography. Some of the earliest, though still debated, examples might even date back to Neanderthals. The first person to write it down was the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates in 400 BCE, who described a people he called the macrocephali, which literally means long heads. From the Huns and Alans sweeping across Europe and Asia, to groups in ancient Egypt, and numerous indigenous peoples in the Americas, like the Maya, the Inca, and the Chinook, the practice was remarkably common. One of the most famous examples comes from the Paracas culture of Peru, which flourished between 750 BC and AD 100. Hundreds of their incredibly striking elongated skulls were unearthed by archaeologist Julio Tello in the 1920s, and they continue to fascinate people to this day. So why did so many different cultures do this? The motivations were complex and varied. For many, the shape of the head was a powerful status symbol. It marked you as a member of a specific group, often the nobility or the elite. For example, among the Calagua people of Peru, archaeological studies have shown that women with elongated skulls seem to have had a better, more privileged diet and suffered less from violence, strongly suggesting they held a high social rank. For other societies, the reasons may have been aesthetic, spiritual, or even protective. Some may have believed it made them more beautiful, while others thought it could ward off evil spirits or bring them closer to the divine. But how can we possibly know what was going on inside these skulls? The brain itself, being soft tissue, doesn't fossilize, but it does leave clues behind. As the brain grows, it leaves a faint but detailed impression on the inner surface of the cranium. The network of ridges, grooves, and pathways for blood vessels forms a natural mold of the brain it once protected. This internal cast is called an endocast. For a long time, researchers had to create physical endocasts. They would carefully pour materials like latex or silicone into a skull to create a physical replica of its interior. While this was a groundbreaking technique, it was also invasive and carried the risk of damaging these incredibly fragile and priceless specimens. The digital age has completely changed the game. Today, neuroarchaeologists use non-invasive technologies like computed tomography or CT scans, and sometimes MRI, to create high-resolution, three-dimensional virtual models of the skulls. This digital approach allows scientists to generate a perfect virtual endocast without ever touching or altering the original fossil. They can then manipulate this 3D model on a computer, measure it, and compare it with others with incredible precision. This gives us an unprecedented window into the paleoneurology of these ancient people. Researchers can meticulously map the imprints of the brain's folds, the major blood vessels, and analyze the overall shape and volume of the different brain lobes. This leads us to the central question neuroarchaeology is trying to answer. What actually happens to a brain when its container, the skull, is forced to grow into such an unnatural shape? The first thing to understand is that the human brain is incredibly plastic. That means it has a remarkable ability to adapt and reorganize itself based on its environment. The prevailing scientific view is that while artificial cranial deformation dramatically changed the skull's shape, it did not change the overall cranial volume. Think of it like a balloon. You can squeeze a round balloon into a long, thin shape, but the amount of air inside stays the same. Similarly, the brain, under the gentle and prolonged pressure of the bindings, simply grew into the space that was available. The skull might become longer, but it would also be narrower or shorter in other dimensions to compensate, keeping the total volume within the normal human range. But this is where it gets really interesting. The key is the redistribution of brain mass. By creating these detailed 3D endocasts, scientists can see how the different lobes of the brain were affected. For instance, a common technique was to flatten the forehead and the back of the head. This would have compressed the frontal and occipital lobes. To make up for this, the parietal lobes, on the sides of the head, would likely have expanded sideways. The implications of these changes are complex and still being debated. We can't, after all, give a memory test to someone who has been dead for 1,000 years. But by combining what we know from modern neuroscience with the archaeological evidence, we can form some compelling hypotheses. Some researchers suggest that ACD could have had negative consequences. They draw comparisons to modern clinical cases of unintentional skull deformation in infants, like plagiocephaly. Based on this, they theorize about potential impacts. For example, the occipital lobe at the back of the head is our primary visual processing center. Compression in this area could have, in theory, affected vision or the ability to recognize objects. The frontal lobes are critical for executive functions like planning, memory, and attention. Significant pressure here might have created difficulties with concentration or learning. Depending on the exact binding method, the temporal lobes and cerebellum could also have been affected, potentially impacting hearing or motor coordination. On the other hand, a significant body of research argues that there's very little evidence for any serious neurological problems. The most compelling argument is the practice's own success. If head shaping caused widespread cognitive deficits, seizures, or other major health issues, it's highly unlikely that cultures would have continued doing it for generation after generation. The key is that the pressure was applied slowly and gradually, allowing the brain's natural plasticity to adapt without the trauma of a sudden injury. A 2014 study concluded that while ACD certainly affects the skull and the position of the brain, it doesn't necessarily cause serious health problems. It's argued that the brain's incredible ability to rewire itself would have allowed for normal cognitive development, just within a differently shaped container. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room: the dramatic, almost alien appearance of some of these skulls, especially from the Paracas culture, has made them a magnet for pseudoscience. You've probably seen the theories online, claiming they are proof of non-human ancestry. These theories often point to a few key features. First, the claim of increased cranial capacity. Proponents often say these skulls have a volume up to 25% larger than modern humans. Second, they point to so-called anomalous suture lines, alleging that the sagittal suture, the line running along the top of the skull, is missing. Third, they claim the foramen magnum, the hole at the base of the skull where the spinal cord connects, is in a different position. And finally, there's the promotion of controversial, non-peer-reviewed DNA analyses, claiming to find mutations linked to a lost human subspecies from Eurasia. Science has systematically addressed and debunked every single one of these claims. Rigorous studies have measured the cranial capacity of hundreds of elongated skulls. The results are clear. Their volume falls well within the normal range of human variation. The shape is different, not the size. The missing sagittal suture? That's a normal part of human aging. As we get older, The sutures in our skull can fuse together and become invisible, a process that can actually be accelerated by the pressure of artificial cranial deformation. Detailed anatomical studies have also shown that the position of the foramen magnum is perfectly consistent with other human skulls. And the DNA results that get so much attention? They have never been published in reputable, peer-reviewed scientific journals. They lack the strict methodology required for valid genetic analysis. In contrast, mainstream genetic research has consistently placed the origins of these individuals squarely within known Native American genetic groups, confirming their human ancestry without any doubt. The investigation into elongated skulls is a powerful example of how modern science can illuminate the past. Neuro-archaeology moves the conversation away from sensationalism and allows us to ask profound questions about the relationship between our culture, our anatomy, and our minds. The debate over the precise cognitive effects of head shaping will continue, but what is certain is that these are not the bones of aliens. They belong to our human ancestors who, for powerful reasons of beauty, status, or belief, chose to reshape the most intimate part of their physical selves. By reconstructing their brains, we are piecing together a story of human ingenuity, cultural identity, and the truly remarkable adaptability of the human mind. The elongated skulls are a testament to the powerful and enduring drive to inscribe our beliefs and our sense of who we are onto our very bodies, a practice that connects us to a distant yet profoundly human past.